Noon or good morning or good evening, whichever one this video finds you at. This is Miss Chapman and I am going to share with you a book talk. Once a week I'm going to share with you a book that I read, and I'm going to use those same 5 questions that I use for those of you who have already completed your independent reading book. This week I'm going to talk about the book Fruit of the Drunken Tree by Ingrid Rojas Contreras. Y'all like my Spanish? Okay, so I'm going to answer those 5 questions. And question number 1 is, I'm not going to actually read the question. I'm going to write the questions at the bottom of the screen, hopefully, if my technology works. But the first thing is what I liked best about the book. First of all, the author, Miss Rojas or Contreras, I saw her speak over at Changing Hands on 3rd Avenue in Camelback. And that's what made me buy the book. The second thing that made me buy the book is that she mentioned Pablo Escobar. And if you know anything about Pablo Escobar, he was a huge drug kingpin back in the 80s. And that was one of the things that made me go, what? She's writing a book set around that time? Okay, I want to try to check this book out. Because I grew up in the 80s and I remember Pablo Escobar's face being all over the news. And my mom made us watch the news a lot, so I remember his face. And I remember when he was arrested. So what I liked best about the book was the time period. It's a time period I can relate to. It's in the 80s. It's a time period that I've heard a lot about, and I like the perspective of a writer actually setting her story in a text that's, to you, it never existed, but to me, it was like a recent past. So that's what I enjoyed most. That's what made me really want to read the book. The other thing that I really liked about the book was I like the main character. There are actually two main characters, but I like the fact that, you know how sometimes when you watch these movies, they always have these guy movies or these girl movies, and they're all like 4 guys together, and they're going through all of these hijinks, and they're doing all of these crazy things, and they get into trouble together, and they have experiences together. Well, that's what I liked about this book. But in this book, it was about mainly 4 young ladies who were between the age of like 11 and maybe 13, and they did all kinds of stuff. They were terrors in the neighborhood. And so I like the fact that these young girls were kind of wild. You know, they just kind of did their own thing, and they were going down next to the doors, neighbors, and knocking on doors and ringing doorbells and, you know, stuff that really could get you in trouble. But I like the fact that she put that in the story, because it made the girls not seem like girly girls, but like girls who are ready for an adventure. And that's what I liked about the young characters, or the heroine or the narrator in this story. Um, this book evokes certain feelings, and when I say evoke, I mean, what does it bring to mind, or what does it make me think about? And it talks about relationships, and it also, I'm going to look about the 2 main characters. There's 2 narrators in the story. The main narrator is what's her name? Chula. And Chula is the main narrator, and she is constantly being contrasted with Petrona. So Chula is like a young middle class young lady. She has both her parents. Her dad has a great job. She goes to school. She goes to a nice private school. They have a garden. They have a really nice home. And Petrona is completely different. Petrona kind of lives like in the projects. And these are not projects that are like what you're used to seeing maybe in Phoenix. These are favelas. Like these projects are all close together, very cramped. And she had the opposite experience. Her father died. He didn't exist. You know, he wasn't around. Well, he died actually. And she was being raised by her mother, who was sickly. And she was basically living a hard life. And so the author, I really liked how she contrasted the 2 characters from Petrona to Chula, And if you remember reading Wonder, the parts that we read, then you remember that's something that the author did in that story, constantly changing the narrator, which changed the point of view of the story. So I really liked that part. So it made me think about the differences in between 2 people's lives, how we can see one thing. So when I ask you what it means to evoke something, I'm asking, what does it bring to you? What does it make you remember? So when I think about it, I'm thinking, wow, this makes me think how 2 people can be going through the same thing. Like we're walking down the same path, but we're experiencing those paths completely differently. Chula, she heard about Pablo Escobar and she heard about him one way, where Petrona heard about him a different way. And knowing that two people could be staying, because actually what happens is Petrona becomes her, the maid of the family, but they're almost the same age. So, you know, you have these two people walking through time and walking through life, and their experience is completely different. Just like many of you right now. I mean, my experience is here without you guys, and your experience could be, some of you might be doing more housework or helping out more with your cooking, or you might be picking up a hobby, or you're doing all kinds of different things, and every family is doing something different, but we're all in the same time period. So I think that's really interesting. It shows me how you really don't know what someone else is going through. That's what I think about the most. The character, if I think about a character that I connected the most with, it would be kind of hard to say, because I'm close to my sisters, but I don't know if I asked the same questions that both the narrators had. I kind of see myself connected to just the time period. If you think about time as a character and the passage of time, as I stated earlier, I was brought up in the 80s. So while I was reading this book, something would happen and I would go get my phone out and go, wait a minute, that happened? And I would look up the person's name. Oh, wow, that happened? So it kind of brought history, because I was still a kid. So in the 80s, I was in elementary school. So I didn't know every detail. I just knew the highlights. But this book made me really kind of go back in time. So I think if there's a character I related to, it probably had to be the character of the setting or the time, because I wasn't really connected to the Chula, because I'm not the youngest child, and I asked questions, but I didn't do those kind of, well, maybe I did those kind of things, but I didn't have the same experiences that she had, and I don't know if I had the same questions that she had. And then Petrona, she was different too, because she was trying to take care of herself. So I don't want to tell you too much, because maybe one day you might pick up this book, and it's a great book, and I don't want to tell you all that stuff. But Petrona's character is completely different. Well, I don't want to say she's completely different, but I will say that her character, some of the struggles she had about maybe having a hard life, I connected to that. Like, you know, having to work hard, sometimes not having things that you would like trying to have, like Petrona didn't have, she didn't have really a lot of nice clothes. So I didn't have a lot of nice clothes growing up. So I can connect to that stuff. But I really think the time period is who I'm more connected with. Story, I think about how we don't know the immigrant's tale as well as we think we do. I mean, we hear about immigrants who come to this country and they want a better job. But maybe sometimes it's not just a better job. They're escaping real threats. And in this story, there's a real threat. And I don't want to tell you what happened, but the character really struggled. So that kind of, I don't want to tell you that. But it makes me think about the immigrant struggle and what the immigrant struggle is like, and how the immigrant struggle can be changed, or how we perceive the immigrant struggle, and those people who can't escape. So what about those people who are still there trying to live a better life? And the last point I want to talk about, what does this book motivate me to do? And it motivates me to find characters, more stories about young girls who have a real sense of adventure. I know when I think about certain books like The Babysitter's Club, and especially, I can't stand that series, a lot of the girls were just doing things like, I don't know, I just didn't like the series, but because the girls didn't really go out and do things, or at least that's not my impression. But in this story, these young girls were fearless. They were hanging out late at night, walking the streets, and, you know, causing trouble and trying to stay, you know, out of the way. I don't want to tell you too much about the story, but I'll say this. I want more stories like that. I want young girls to see themselves as fearless individuals who can accomplish and do anything. I want them to take charge and go, yes, I can do it. I'm fearless. That's what I want to see. So I want more stories like that. So maybe I need to make an effort. Well, I will make an effort to find some. But the next, so boys, look, if you're listening, don't get upset with me, please, because I have the next story is about two young boys. It's called As Brave as You by Jason Reynolds. So I will review this one next week, and I hope to see you all soon. Matter of fact, if you've read something, why not post a video or share a video with me on Class Dojo? Upload it, send it to me, or send it to me through Teams. Well, I don't think you can do it through Teams, but send me a video of something that you've been reading and tell me. Use those same 5 questions, which I'll put in the information box, and talk to me about those stories. Or if you have some questions about fruits of the drunken tree, let me know. I might answer. I'm not going to answer everything because I am all about not giving out too many spoilers. I want you to read it yourself. And this book this book was good. I'm sorry. I don't want to tell you too much, but this book broke me down in tears. I don't even want to get into that. Y'all want to make me start telling y'all too much about this book. You know what? Go read. That's all I got to tell you. Go read. Go read. Go read.